a celebration of music and poetry and art by African American artists in celebration of African American History Month. Before I begin and say anything more about the details, I really want to thank Professor Katima Lee. She's standing right there. And she has orchestrated and organized the entire evening. And even though she is a great poet herself, she has excluded herself from the poetry readings. So Katima, wonderful job. Thank you so much. Just wanted to mention, just as jazz music is often an improvisation, so we are also having an improvisational art work tonight. In fact, perhaps two works. Professor Steve Prince. Steve, can you stand up so they can see you? There, okay. Is going to be drawing while the poetry is being read and while the music is being played. And then we're going to raffle off his painting or paintings, depending on how many he gets done. He's very productive. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Jonathan Neal, who is going to introduce the band, and we will soon have music. Thank you so much.
Dion Clark, a guitarist and producer from Washington, D.C., has been making his mark in and around the D.C. area, playing guitar and bass in a variety of music styles and settings. Over the years, Dion has covered a lot of ground in areas of music. He has attended the University of District of Columbia, majoring in music. He became the musical instructor for a private school in Washington, D.C., and he was a guitar instructor for the Maryland Park Planning Commissioning in Southern Maryland, and private instructor for several students in the DMV. Dion has performed at the U.S. Capitol, Caesar's Palace, Blues Alley, and several jazz festivals. Dion clean-cut style is soulful, melodic, tasteful, and pleasing to the ear. Accompanying Dion on stage is no stranger here to the Globe Hall. We have our very own Keith Mathis, a professor here at Montgomery College, who will be assisting on trumpet. It's sure to be great, so put your hands together for Dion Cleancut and Keith Mathis.
me tonight. I have my main man here all the way from Oakland, California. You know he's from the hood because he has a name like Pookie. Clarence Pookie Jenkins. My other partner all the way from Silver Spring, Maryland, Gus Johnson. Man, I wish I could blow trumpet like that. I tried, but I had to switch, man. I couldn't do it. And your very own Jerry Mathis. Keith Mathis. I'm yours truly, Leon.
Gus Johnson on drums, Pookie on bass.
Next, we have two very special poets. We have Carlo Paul, who was born in Brooklyn, New York, to Haitian parents. He is a graduate of the University of Maryland College Park, where his work first appeared in the campus periodicals Stylus and Eclipse. His work also appears in Callaloo and Cave Canem anthologies. He lives here in Montgomery County. Other poet is Shannon L. Smith, a poet and writer from Kentucky, a longtime member of the Afro-Laitian Poets. She currently resides in Maryland, where she is a doctoral candidate for American Studies in the University of Maryland College Park, specializing in African American women's literature, culture, and life history. Adopting some of Washington, D.C.'s area college, she has recently taken up hand dance. Please give a warm welcome for Shannon Smith and Carlo Paul.
Hello, everybody. How's everybody doing? All right. Well, Happy New Year and Happy Black History Month to each and every one of you. And first, I got to give a big round of applause to the band myself. I mean, nice work. And to the artist. I like the pictures. I like the drawings. Well, I'm going to try to read about 4 poems today. Let's see. We'll start out with, since it is Black History Month, I might as well start out with my own Black history, right? So this first poem is called Carlo Jean-Baptiste. My name is Carlo Paul, but under different circumstances, my name should have been Carlo Jean-Baptiste. So this poem is called Carlo Jean-Baptiste. It goes out to my grandmother. What is in a name but history, identity, and family? Or is it all just blind luck, this making up of a timeless word where vowels and consistency are like characters in a helix until a name appears, matures, defines, distinguishes itself as an inherited trait that binds generations? This heirloom then handed down like a grandmother's smile? Or will grandma break family, identity, history? Could she deny my grandfather a legacy and hand down her maiden name with her smile? This next poem, since it is Black History Month, I want to read a poem. It's not mine, it's by the great Robert Hayden. It's called Frederick Douglass. I want to read this poem because it inspired me to write a poem about one of my friends. So first I'll read the Frederick Douglass poem, and then I'll read the poem that inspired me to write. And Frederick Douglass, by the way, is a sonnet by Robert Hayden. Frederick Douglass by Robert Hayden. When it is finally ours, this freedom, this liberty, this beautiful and terrible thing, needful to man as air, usable as earth, when it belongs at last to all, when it is truly instinct, brain matter, digital, systole, reflex action, when it is finally won, when it is more than the gaudy mumbo-jumbo of politicians, this man, this Douglass, this former slave, this Negro beaten to his knees, exiled, visioning a world where none is lonely, none hunted, alien, this man, superb in love and logic, this man shall be remembered. Oh, not with statues, rhetoric, not with legends and poems and wreaths of bronze alone, but with the lives grown out of his life, the lives fleshing his dream of the beautiful, needful thing. That's the poem Frederick Douglass by Robert Hayden. It inspired me to write a poem called Anthony's Sonnet, because that poem was a sonnet. This poem was inspired because Anthony was a friend of mine. He didn't make it to our 10-year anniversary or high school anniversary. He took his own life before our 10-year high school anniversary. He was born in the 1st of February, so this month is his birthday month, and he would have been 40 years old. So after hearing the Frederick Douglass poem way back in college, I wrote this poem called Anthony's Sonnet, and I borrowed a lot from Robert Hayden. So, Anthony's Sonnet. When it is finally yours, this freedom, this liberty, this beautiful and terrible thing, as needful to man as air, we will hold on to your memory and set your ashes free. There isn't any solace for our grief, except for us to keep in mind Hayden's poem, Frederick Douglass, to remind ourselves that your life was slavery. How since birth you've been beaten to flesh your parents' dreams, as statuesque as they were, and I can only wonder when you quit caring. If Frederick Douglass envisioned that self-ownership is a freedom, a liberty, as needful to man as air, oh, for this beautiful, terrible thing, you showed us how true that can be. Lifeless, in a noose, for such liberty, as needful to man as air. Thank you. This next poem finally got me published. I'm so excited. It's called Women Being a Woman, a single woman, being held by two policemen. I saw this black and white photo. It was taken by a white photographer. Back in the 60s, he was a young man from Chicago. He would go down into the heart of the civil rights movement down in the South, and he also took pictures in the North. He was just a regular photographer. And so he has different exhibits, but one of his exhibits is a civil rights exhibit with all these black and white photos that he took from the South. He would travel with civil rights leaders or just take his camera and just take pictures of what was going on in the South. And there's one picture where there is a young black woman. She's being held by two policemen, and each policeman is holding one of her arms in different directions. And maybe she was protesting. I don't know. A picture says 1,000 words. It's the middle of the street. During the day, there's traffic behind. It's just a simple arrest by two officers for this young protester, or I don't know. But it inspired me to write this poem. When I saw the picture, because she's in the center of the photo with two policemen taking her arms, and it's so symbolic of the civil rights movement and just a struggle to have two people just pulling your arms. It just immediately came to my mind. I saw once a piece of artwork of the torso of Apollo, and it doesn't have a head, it doesn't have any arms, it's just this torso. And that's the first thing that came to my mind when I saw her photo, because she's in the center of the picture, and it's just her torso that you really see. Her arms, you don't really think about them, you don't think about her head or anything like that. So this poem is called Woman Being Held by Two Policemen, and it's about the photo that I saw. Her arms are pulled back by white noise in this photo, then blend into the crowd as onlookers, moving cars and titles screaming cliche. Images of her right eye's stare, curled lip, breeze-blown cut are forgettable. The chin-strapped officer with a wedding ring and rhyming bow tie reads overkill. The pair of areola-sized buttons over her torso on her button-down shirt conceal curved breasts, yet ripple with the unmistakable abs of Apollo. The photo's dramatic cropping of legs, with both lapels stopping short at the shoulder, lets you take a second look and wonder, is she Artemis, his twin? Conversations grow louder, echo Rilke, remarking on the ripe grays of her right eye, while right on a hammock points above her to the chicken hawk floating in the sign above her. I feel the tension in this woman's left wrist, twisted to a fist. But the focus is on the torso, its beauty, a timeless, steadfast exclamation. And the last poem I'd like to read is kind of a remix. It's the same photo, but it is written kind of in the mind of the white photographer and what he was trying to say in that photo. So it's the same title, Woman Being Held by Two Policemen, and this is a black and white photo by Bruce L. Davidson in the 1960s, the photographer. My intent was to show my unique story too. One tough, blue-collar, single mother in Chicago who raised me, her only child, the daily struggles we had in this changing society to overcome our obstacles. Me, I'm in the center of this photo, a white youth, a part of the movement, snapping these photos from north to south during this Civil War, next to King, Klansmen, maturity, mayhem, and death. But sometimes I feel like my voice was never louder than the silent marquee. In the background, boasting suspense, excitement, in large glossy letters as red as lipstick on Susan Hayward. Am I not her, eager to capture lives of real people on film for applause for the audience? I want to thank Katima, and I also want to thank Montgomery College for hosting this. I would love for this to be here every year. It's a great idea. Thank you.
I just wanted to say about 20 years ago, I was a student a lot like a lot of you all. And I was going to the University of Kentucky, and I used to hang around the Cultural Center. And there were a lot of poets that used to hang around there, and we all kind of gravitated to this one area. And they had already started a group called the Affirmation Poets, and the reason why they started that was because who ever heard of a black poet from Kentucky? But they existed. And so a group of us, began this group, and 20 years later, last year, we had an anniversary at Busboys and Poets, and it was the first time I'd read with them in a long time. But the man who started that group, Frank X. Walker, wound up being Kentucky's first black poet laureate 2 weeks ago. And so I had to say that. So I wanted to start this off for Black History Month. And please forgive me, I'm a former English teacher, so I love words. And I love African American literature, and I love history. I wrote this poem rooted at our 10th anniversary of the Affirmation Poets. And so this is called Rooted. I like carved out paths, nicely mowed runways, the salute of oaks bowing and pussy willows applauding my sway. I don't mind sauntering last, the way prepared, and I think Harriet understands. She and sojourners shaking the heads of wildflowers at me, catcalling, "Go on, girl," as I step onto their well-worn footprints. It's their hands that press forward my back, rooted, rooting. Didn't I knock over trees for you, girl? I'd be huffs at my spine, as together they shape smooth, knotted worry that has been whipped into my brow. I hang on to them, who set my skull with grandmotherly palms, needing to focus my mind before the world hardens it. This is no pampering, as I teeter in the archway, peek out at miles, where I must add my own step. No, this is a laying on of hands that wills instructions, Mary Bethune solidly lifting my chin. Didn't you read mine? She straightens my shoulders, and Fannie Lou works her own battered limbs, using them as my divining rod. This ain't no civil right. These women were angry at my settled softness since they overcame and I arrived, chosen by these sisters to model my own stuff. Miss Daisy thrust me her ticket, baiting me sharply. "We bought you that ticket, girl," and they pushed. So I wanted to start out there because I think at this moment, it's time for somebody in this room to step out into their own and be pushed by maybe their sheroes, their heroes. Now, when I moved to this area, to the DC area, I was very fascinated by the history of writing in this area, and I walked around U Street on a tour and discovered a woman by the name of Georgia Douglas Johnson, who was a poet during the Harlem Renaissance, but there was one right here in the DC area. And she established a group called the Saturday Nighters for poets and artists in her home. And so I call this spoken works. Word women whose spoken works demand justice, word women who wrote selves, speaking to what was and is, creating a world vision in their mouths, whole with expectation, and fulfilling listening ears like mothers passing literary nourishment through their lips. Words, work. Across lands, Frances Harper traveled, performing words that visualize suffering, making lyric of miscellaneous subjects, exposing wounds that bruise deeply the red, brown, and blue Black people. Words work. In signs like Anna Julia Cooper recalls, one for ladies and one for colored men, but no sign at all for colored ladies. Her voice insistent that Black women, when and where they choose, must enter, blazing trails and marking them with words to reveal, reinscribe, reinvent. Words work. In salons on Saturdays, social work that comb through tangled thoughts, uneven root issues and shape renaissances, in intimate touch and collective talk, Georgia Douglas Johnson hosted minds in her living rooms that emerged to transform, all making words work beautiful. Okay? Thank you. So, every now and then I watch the news. It's, pretty depressing. But I wrote this, I call it My Girls, because I got tired of seeing all of the pictures of the missing girls on the news, except they weren't really in the news on television. They were over the email and on Facebook, because we don't really publish Black girls who go missing. So I call this My Girls. 2 more girls gone today, with twin braids anchoring the sides of their cheeks, doe eyes gleaming for a camera. And it's too bad that they're Black girls whose picture only circulated for a moment before gone, like the 2. Why would they at 9 years old slip away from the sidewalk in the city space that knew them to direct themselves lost in their enthusiasm, to be away anywhere a local train took them, play grown and invent new selves for themselves just across the border? Did they know no one would look, not even for Black girls in the news, not even at 9? Did some mama tell them we watch for white and wonder more for little white girls and women? Or did the latest lyric only suggest that Black booties, brown thighs, and beige breasts are all that's looked for if Black girls are offering them, not prepubescent bodies clothed correctly for school? 2 girls were found today, wandering into our preempted imaginations. We did look for them, those who noticed on emailed Black underground news networks. We looked into our own mirrors and recognized them gone. And they were found stubbornly refusing to be what someone else called them, found together in the midst of their adventure and pulled from it. And we who watched it all go down released bittersweet breaths, understanding that mama needed to beat them again within an inch of their lives to keep them safely from Black girls into Black women, and wishing it was us on that train with our best girlfriend, reinventing what a Black girl lives for herself. Thank you.
In the words of Derek Weston Brown, a poet from 14th and V Street's Busboy and Poets, Alan King is a fixture on the D.C., Maryland, Virginia scene since 1999. Alan has once time blessed every open mic spot throughout the area. Mangoes, he was there. Brooklyn Cup of Dreams, he was there. The first Java Head Cafe in College Park, he was there. The first Mocha Hut on 14th Street, he was there. Yogi's Records, he was there. Harambe's and Adams Morgan, he was there. Teaism, he was there. And bar none, he was there. This cat's a walking history book of DC poetry. Not only that, but he's a dynamic performer and prolific writer. Please put your hands together for Alan King.
Okay, thank you. How's everybody doing? Okay. I want to thank Katima for inviting us to share. I'm honored to be sharing the stage with the wonderful band and the artists as well. And I also want to thank Montgomery College for hosting this. So thank you. I'm just going to jump into these poems. First one is Translation. And it's dedicated to the third grade and puppy love. Translation. That evening, daylight fading into a peach sorbet-colored sky, I pumped my legs to get you home before curfew. Wondering then what the moon tried to tell me, sliding its light over your bare limbs. The scent of your sugar cookie brown skin, sweet as cotton candy, bubblicious. And what did it all mean, this drumming in my blood, my heart opening like the tapered head of a tulip? That evening, when you climbed on the back of my mountain bike, I might have been rickshawing a dignitary, the way the hummingbird in my chest fluttered with your arms around my waist. My body trying to decipher this language of touch, when the closest we'd come in third grade was sipping off the same straw. Thank you. So I was in a bookstore and was in a conversation with the cashier. And of all the things we could talk about in the bookstore, she starts running down all these street names for different drugs. And I don't know how we got on that conversation, so don't ask me. But anyway, so what was interesting was a particular drug she was talking about. We know it as boat, but it has its name in other places. So in D.C., she said it was called the Spirit of Washington, hence the title of this next piece. Spirit of Washington. My brother Drew said the boy must have smoked it before screaming and punching a wall at the back of the movie theater, before gloved hands rushed him with tasers. 2 pulls left Jay naked in the woods behind our high school, howling at a milky white eye in the dark sky. Was that what made Terrence lie across double solid lines, then laugh as a neighbor swerved to keep from crushing him? This boat, made of rolling paper and herb, dipped in fluid that preserves dead bodies, far from a cruise liner sailing the Potomac. So this next piece, it's called Conundrum, and thank you. So this next poem is called Conundrum, and it's circa 2007. That's right around the time when I wrote this piece. The actual poem happened a decade before. So we're like 97, I was 16, my brother was 15, and we were kind of going through this phase where we thought we had mastered the art of being cool. And we thought we had it so bad. We were putting together a pamphlet to help folks who hadn't quite gotten there and wanted to get on that level. Well, anyway, my dad at that time was coming to terms with his sons not inheriting his cool genes. And he was okay with that until he overheard our conversation. And so for months afterwards, every time he saw us, all he did was just shake his head and look away. So this is Conundrum, circa 2007. A decade before, my brother and I were strapped inside the leather belly of an Oldsmobile 88 that roared like something feral, with speakers coughing up bass and spitting rhymes from Busta's first album. I don't recall where we were headed, just that we cruised the city with our fresh haircuts and fragrant whispers of Egyptian musk behind our ears. We thought the secret was in scented oils or the abracadabra of a barber's clippers reducing stubborn curls to rows of waves. What we would have given for the answer to the riddles of women. The open says a me to a hidden door in the wall they might have erected for trespassers. And wasn't it deeper than what our father called a lack of game? When science defined pheromones as nature's airborne love potion, that decade we rode with the windows down, the breeze a cool tongue lapping at our sweaty foreheads, both of us wondering what the recipe was. All right, so before I met my wife, I went through what I call a Quasimodo moment. And so anybody that knows the story of Quasimodo knows it's essentially it's a story about unrequited love. And so it's, it's anybody can connect to it. I mean, we've all had feelings for somebody that the other person couldn't return to us. So this poem is about a moment like that. It's Quasimodo in New York City. Winter yanks her breezy hymn over New York City. I beat the streets like a madman haunted by what rattles in his head. I'm a man shaken by a gypsy woman's loud no when she snatches her hand from his. I'm a man leaving what he desires at a hotel in Times Square. And I might be scary the way insecurities surface like warts, the way passers-by stare at the shame that hunches my spine. Maybe what I need is a poem as pretty as Esmeralda, but one willing to hold the head of something ugly and kiss it beautiful. Thank you. So I didn't want to leave Quasimodo hanging. So I figured who would be the coolest person to give Quasimodo a pep talk. So the person I came up with is Tim Siebels. For those who don't know, Tim Siebels is a really cool cat. I mean, humble dude, was just nominated for the National Book Award. Older guy, and he's like 70s cool. You see Tim, you're like, Tim, how you doing? Right on, right on. So this is this imagined conversation between Tim and Quasimodo. So it's Tim Siebels schools Quasimodo, or know what I'm saying? Come on, bro. Gonna be soggy as old sneaks, 'cause some woman you wanted shrieked as if you were straight out of a Hitchcock flick? Gonna dye your warts blue for a pity party when the muse is ever present? Rejection's a turnstile. Think you're the first to go through one? Think you're the first brother to hurt over a woman, to scream your pain from life's bell towers? You're not in Paris anymore. And how could that gypsy woman not see your heart as big as Notre Dame, that it rings loud like bells tolling each hour? You're at the Bowery now. Whole lot of tongue-tying to be had in here, my man. Get a load of the one at the bar. Can Esmeralda spill into a dress the way that poem spills her sexy syllables inside sequence stanzas? Tell me she ain't a riddle you busting your brain to solve. If I was you, Home Slice, I'd forget that silly gypsy woman. Try to get up in some wordplay. I'm just saying. Thank you. All right, so the last poem I'm gonna read from Drift is a poem for my wife, and it's At Salams. My heart might have been a candle, the way it flickered. We were in a club below U Street dancing to Afrobeat. Wanted to say those 3 words that night. You painted your face with white dots along your nose and forehead. All I knew of you then could fit inside the head of a flame. And I might have been a lantern, glowing from what I wanted to tell you. But those words were lost in the roll of your hips, when you lifted your hymn to the side as if what pulsed from speakers bared its horns before charging at us. They were lost among silhouettes knocked around by the rhythm, lost in a room of dumb bodies the DJ jerked like a puppet master. That night, You grinded my back into the brick wall and took my tongue the way a tsunami overtakes a small boat. That night, I was haunted by worst case scenarios, a needle scratching the vinyl record, its waxy silence. Okay, so these two poems I'm going to close out with are from a manuscript I just finished, a new manuscript. The first of those two pieces is a poem titled I Wanted Bananas. I wanted bananas, a bunch of them, spooned body to body like small yellow kayaks. So I miss what you said about the war in Libya. When you say Gaddafi, I think of how they spoil if they sit too long on their wicker thrones. We're in my car listening to WTOP. We passed the Spanish market that calls what I love plátanos. Just saying plata, my tongue snaps like the slingshot's elastic strip, hurling A's like stones. You complain about the weak radio signal. I could nod and punctuate your frustrations with hums, as if I'm listening, as if my head weren't full of hunger's SOS. I could pretend that the radio static is annoying, as if the sizzling sound it makes doesn't have me thinking of sweet, chunky rumba slices frying in my mother's skillet, or plantains boiled whole with dashing, dumplings, and potatoes to eat with saltfish and coconut bake, plates and plates of large bananas, edible boomerangs, nature's golden sugar-filled tusks, the moon's waning frown or waxing smile. Okay, this last poem is for my nephew, Striptease for Taib. Watching the cameras at Target, security guards rush our nephew as he leaves the register before they lug him to a back room. They mistake him for a thief, returning stolen clothes for cash. Never mind the blouse he brought back was his mom's, that she couldn't find the receipt. And the worst she thought would happen was the cashier saying, "Please come back when you find it." But they're holding him for us to take home. The store closes in 20 minutes. Then he'll be cuffed and bounced to a detention center. He tells us this through my wife's cell phone that rang while we were cruising to a dim restaurant where curry and basmati rice fly their fragrant kites. Our tongues tingle thinking of vegetable samosas, pyramids of peas and potatoes and fried dough, drizzled with tamarind chutney and cilantro sauce. But the appetites vanish in the U-turn. We get there to hear the chief of security. What kind of mother gets her son mixed up in her drama? I want to punch this black man, but the badges and guns say it's a bad idea. Our nephew flinches at every heavy eye, thinking they know his type, as if his story wasn't tied to that boy 20 years ago, browsing a store aisle, sporting his t-shirt and jeans he bought the week before, the ones security thought he stole before they ripped them off him. I'm sick of the striptease we're forced to perform when authority smacks us back in line for thinking we're like everyone else. I'm sick of the obsession with dark skin, the desire to see it locked down or scoring endorsements. Our nephew knows at 17 and 6 feet, he'll always fit the description. That his skin will justify random traffic stops, badges cuffing him, slamming his head into car hoods. That same skin says the incident at Target is them popping his cherry. Thank you.
Wow, I'm absolutely breathless. The Harlem Renaissance has been relived tonight, for sure. Let's give these poets and artists a tremendous round of applause.